The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the home for amazing pin collectibles with over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month.
Stay tuned for a special discount code worth 10% off your next order at fansets.com. Fansets, our pins have character.
There is a lot of starship porn this week. But beside that, we catch up with our characters from last season and we see what's transpired since we last saw them. So sit back, relax, and get your favorite drink from the 10 Forward Avenue Bar. I'm Mike Bovia, and this is Discovering Trek Picard. Thanks for joining us on Discovering Trek, the Star Trek Universe companion presented by Fansets. I think it's safe to say that a lot of people were blown away by what we experienced this week during the premiere of season 2. So instead of teasing and waxing poetic here, I think it's more important that we catch up with our crew first so that we can break it all down. So 3/4 of the Sci-Fi Sisters set sail on the Star Trek cruise this week, but someone had to stay behind to man the helm of the mothership. Now, fortunately for us, her duties allow her to join us tonight. Hello, Tamia. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing fantastic.
It's good to be here.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to talking about all of this. It was the premiere was pretty rocking.
I can't wait to get into this. I have so much to say.
Yeah, that's great. So our next co-host has hopefully recovered from chaperoning high schoolers in the easiest place in the world to do so, New Orleans. Mike Thurlow, is next year's trip to Vegas with all of these kids? I mean, who chose that place?
I don't know, but that's not a bad idea. Las Vegas would be interesting. I don't know if I'd want to go with 15 kids, though. And I especially missed being able to drink at Mardi Gras. We did see some parades, so I was definitely missing some alcohol to get me through. But we left with 15 kids. We came back with 15 kids. I feel pretty accomplished.
Were they the same 15 kids?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Awesome. And of course, our last co-host, the man who wishes that he could be the love child of Picard and Laris, Jamie Rogers. And wow. I know that's true.
Wow. Wow. Unbelievable.
That's an amazing introduction. Wow.
How do I respond to that? You know, I almost didn't even realize that we were doing a podcast on Picard because I was having so much fun in our pre-discussions about hot wieners in Rhode Island and Dell's Lemonade that I almost forgot that we were talking about Star Trek Picard. But now, if you'd like to follow this show on social media, you can find us at Discovering Trek, or you can join the conversation on Camp Kittimer. Just answer a few simple questions, and our admins, Haley, Jackie, and Fark, will let you in.
And here's your friendly reminder that this episode of Discovering Trek provides spoilers for the Picard episode, The Stargazer. If you have not watched yet, head over to Paramount Plus and watch the episode, and then head back to listen to us. Failure to do so leaves you open to spoilers.
Okay, so we're ready to dig into episode 201 of Star Trek Picard, The Stargazer, which aired March 3rd of 2022. It was written by Akiva Goldsman and Terry Matalas and directed by Doug Arniakowski. Oh my gosh, I was so nervous. I got it. I made it through. His name.
That's staying in.
It better, right?
Episode over. We're done. We're good.
So in The Stargazer, On this episode, Starfleet must once again call on legendary Jean-Luc Picard after members of his former crew, Cristobal Rios, Seven of Nine, Raffi Musiker, and Dr. Agnes Jurati discover an anomaly in space that threatens the galaxy. Dun, dun, dun.
Because it always does. There's always something that's threatening the galaxy. Except this time, Enterprise is not the only ship in the sector to handle it. So I know we all have some strong opinions about this first episode. So let's go around. Thumbs up or thumbs down, and why? So Jamie, I know we'll let you give your thoughts on it first. Thumbs up or thumbs down for you?
I definitely think it's a thumbs up. I think it's a very strong start to the season. I'm totally dumbfounded as to what's going to happen. Like I just had my mouth agape watching this episode, especially as we got to the end. Where it's going to go from here looks absolutely amazing. But I thought very action packed. You know, I wasn't a big fan of the introduction, and I know it was really action packed, and obviously we kind of tied into it later on. But I just think it was a great, other than the introduction, a great opening sequence, opening episode.
Agreed. Mike, you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. I give it 2 big thumbs up. I really enjoyed it. I watched it again right before this afternoon, and I loved it again. Even saw some more great things about it. I will agree with Jamie. It started off a little slow, and I was a little worried at the beginning, but it sort of ramped up quickly. And it was a great adventure. I'm dumbfounded at where we were left and what is going to come next.
Yeah, that's for sure. Tamia, what did you think?
Well, I give it 2 really enthusiastic, big thumbs up. I really enjoyed it. And like, I didn't feel like it was slow from the beginning. Like, I loved the beginning part. I mean, I was just enraptured. I think it just felt good to see these characters again, and that opening sequence was wonderful for me because it was felt familiar. It was a familiar setting, and that sort of fell over me like a warm blanket, and eased me right on in. So I loved the whole first episode. I really loved everything about it. There's a lot. I'll say there's a lot that I loved about it. Maybe not everything, but yeah, it was really strong.
Yeah, I have to agree with all you guys that 2 big thumbs up for me as well. I'll tell you the thing that appealed to me most about this was the fact that we catch up literally with each of the characters progressively throughout the episode to see what's happened between the end of season 1 and now where we're starting in season 2. And a lot has happened as we find out. So I liked that there was that little roundup where we were able to, what's happening with Jurati, what's happened with Picard and Raffi, and what's happened with Raffi and Seven together. These were all important things that everyone was looking at the end of the season. There were some unresolved things with, what was going to happen with Jurati, with the murder of Bruce Maddox. But then, there was that little glimmer at the end of Seven and Raffi. So what was going to happen with that in season 2? So I think we got it all spelled out within the first episode to catch us up where everyone is, but also start the story of this season as well.
Please specify how you would like to proceed, sir.
So key points that stuck out to us. So on this one, this is going to just be a regular round table. So Tamia, I'll have you start, but as you're going, everyone else can chime in with their thoughts as well.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go back to the beginning and start with the fate. The first thing was, oh my gosh, we're in a really recognizably Starfleet ship. And that was just so good to my eyes. And despite what was going on there, I mean, it was pretty rough what was going on. But after watching so much other Trek that is completely different, it was just felt good to be back in that setting. It was very comfortable. And then I liked how I noticed that the intro music was a little bit faster tempo before, and I thought that was really effective. And probably more befitting for this, what's coming down the pike for this season.
I would
definitely
definitely
like stage really well.
Yeah, I would definitely like to piggyback on the opening title sequence, because I noticed that the musical tones were much darker and deeper. And I think it kind of lends to that. This is going to be a darker season. And, it was darker colors to me in that opening title sequence for sure.
And Jamie, like there was even a little musical, like almost callback to Mirror Universe, almost like in the end. And I was like, that's mirror music right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought that.
No, I was totally enraptured with that opening sequence and how different it was. And it was like you could tell it was Star Trek Picard, but it was nuanced very differently.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I really picked up on those deeper, darker notes that were used and those deeper, darker tones that was there.
Yeah.
It felt more orchestral to me, at least. I got it out. I felt a lot of tones of Next Generation too, and kind of that callback to some good Star Trek theme music.
Yeah.
I did feel too like there was a lot of homage being paid to previous iterations of Trek in this first episode. I mean, obviously there's some of the real common things like Guinan and Q, but I mean even some of the different ship names, Hikaru Sulu. There was reference to the Kobayashi Maru, Sori and Brandy, right?
Not only a reference, but the same bottle too.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, the Stargazer, the Grissom, paying homage to Star Trek 3.
The Excelsior.
The Excelsior. Right. Yeah, so there was a lot of, I don't want to say Easter eggs, but a lot of little Easter eggs that really paid homage to some of the previous shows that I really felt were executed very perfectly and done really well. Some things I really loved.
All right. So speaking of paying homage, can I just say I think today, with yesterday having been the premiere, all the Picard Crusher shippers have to be pissed. I mean,
I will say though, Laris looked absolutely stunning in this first episode.
Well, I mean,
agreed. Yeah.
I mean, she's a beautiful woman anyways, but they just, I don't know. And I mean, I'm assuming it's how they did her hair differently, but she looked absolutely stunning. And it just, that's all I'm going to say about that.
I think that was going to be one of my key points that I was going to bring up was Laris and Picard, and those scenes together. I mean, she could chew the scenery right with him, and she is just so captivating to watch. What's her name? Orla, right?
Orla Brady. Yep.
Orla Brady. Yeah. I mean, she's really captivating, and she does so much with her eyes that makes it you're just entranced watching her fold up a blanket in the field or a jacket. She makes it look so interesting. She's really, really wonderful. And I love those intimate moments between the two of them. It was just, I mean, I every time I rewatched it, I would hone in on those scenes. They were really powerful. and understated and impactful. Just amazing.
Yeah. I gotta say, when I first watched it and I saw her name in the opening credits, I was like, oh man, she's gonna be in this more. I mean, she was like one of the standout side characters from last year. Like people liked Jabon, but all you heard about what people were calling her the Momulan, because she was a little bit older, but and like you said, Jamie, the way they made her up this time, you didn't get that feel. Like you could tell she was a mature woman, like not some 20, 30 something kid, but you weren't thinking grandmother that is going to be hooking up with the almost 100-year-old admiral.
No, absolutely not. And it's interesting. I really think it was a deliberate choice to eliminate Jabon out of the equation. I mean, if you think about that, he was a character that was liked a lot in season 1, but I really think they're trying to develop, the writers are really trying to develop this dynamic between Picard and Laris, and almost, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but almost that this is going to be that character that he longs for throughout the entire season of how do I get back to her? How do I, she completes me to a certain extent, because she really does. Of all the characters he's ever had some sort of, relationship with, I mean, she really does compliment him in so many ways and keeps him on his toes, so I just wonder if they're really trying to weave that thread throughout the entire show of like, I've lost her because of what's happened and how things have gone horribly wrong. And
how do I get her back?
Yeah. How do I get her back? Because now that she's not in my life anymore, there's something missing that I've been missing all these years.
I'm gonna drop a little thing right here, Jamie, and I'm gonna say this is 2 podcasts in a row with you that you've dropped, or that you or I have dropped the 90s romantic reference. You with she completes me.
I had to.
Jerry Maguire.
She does go toe to toe with Picard and has a strong personality, but is soft as well, and I really like that. But the first time, so when I watched the premiere the first time, I was not on board with this. It just seemed a little bit awkward to me. And then rewatching it today, I don't know, I picked up on some nuances, or was just in a different place, however it was, and I really bought it the second time. So I'm really excited to see where this goes, and the scene that really gets me that I think of right now is when Picard goes off and he leaves and she walks in and she just stares after the shuttlecraft as it takes off and goes away. And I was like, wow, that is
it's typical Picard.
That's powerful.
But,
yes, typical Picard. Yeah,
typical Picard, and her expression, the expression on her face was not just like, oh, she wasn't mooning over him. She was pissed. Right. Yep. She was really upset, and and I thought, and she was heartbroken. Yeah,
and I think that's why I like her so much, because she was pissed but also upset.
Yeah.
And it's funny too. It's like you see him throughout the show, and you saw it last season and this season. He is so helpless without her. Like that episode where he's like in the episode where he's trying to find the book, and it's like she just walks right over the shelf and pulls it down for him, and she's keeping him on time because he's late. It's just it's like he needs her so bad in his life, and he knows it. He genuinely knows it. And when she's not there, there's definitely a void there. And it's really, I think they did a nice job. I agree with you, Mike, where I didn't buy it the first time I watched this episode. I was like, what? It felt so forced to me. But now that I've watched it 2 or 3 times, it's like they're really setting up where this show is going to go this season.
Yeah, and I was I'm part of that like Crusher ship relationship piece. I was like, where's Crusher? That's one of my big questions. But yeah,
she did make an appearance in this episode.
She did.
In the bar, there's a picture of her on the wall.
It actually said Howard Avenue too. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's on Howard Avenue. Yeah,
that's some deep eagle eyes right there.
Oh, now I get it. Howard. Okay, wow.
I can't take credit. That was online. I happen to notice it there. I have my eyes are terrible. So we talked about it a little bit in the beginning. The Seven and Raffi relationship. How do you guys feel about how it was described here?
Well, can I go?
Go for it. Round table.
All right. So did anybody listen to the audio drama that they produced? Okay, you did, Mike. Mike T and Mikey B.
We
all did.
Jamie did.
Oh yeah. All right, cool.
I wondered if I hadn't listened to that audio drama, how I would have, what my perception of this would have been. I think it almost seemed like it would be kind of empty and like I would be upset like if I hadn't listened to that bridge, because I'd be like, wait, what? I don't understand, like, I mean, you could take Raffi's statement on one level, right? Like, well, she makes me want to think, hope for more. She makes me want to have something more, and just leave it like, okay, maybe Raffi's at one place, but listening to the audio drama fills in a lot more substance to that statement. But there is a lot of connections that wouldn't have been made without, like, why is Seven on the La Sirena? And these are things that wouldn't be explained without the audio drama.
Right. I'll just quickly plug here. Look for the Divine Treasury coming soon. Our interview with Kirsten Beyer and Mike Johnson, who wrote No Man's Land.
Look at you guys. Wow.
Nice.
You're the master of landing interviews, Mike Bovia.
Right?
It's all him. All him.
Don't give me too much credit. I haven't lined up anything for this show yet.
On a different note, Soji, and I feel like we haven't talked about Soji or covered. I don't know how anyone else feels, but I almost feel she's kind of out of place in this first episode. And I almost feel like I'm really wondering how they're going to shoehorn her into the season almost. Maybe I'm way out in left field on this, but I just feel like her character, it's lost in this first episode.
I feel like her character is lost, period. After that first season, what do we need her for? Like, and I'm not trying to be harsh, but like, I really feel like her story was done. Now she's gone off with her synths, and so I didn't know how they were going to try to fit her in this season at all.
Well, that's the thing, is like, I almost feel like her scene and her sequence was forced, like it was just like, okay, let's do our random Soji drop.
Right. We're trying to catch everybody up. So
we're trying to catch everybody up, and we're going to make it where, Agnes is in the same area that she is. So we can kind of have a connection to Soji, but I didn't like that. And I just feel like, maybe she shouldn't be in this season. I don't know, but that sequence felt forced to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I kind of feel like her position, one of you guys said it, where she's just off with her synths. I kind of feel like she's almost become an ambassador of sorts for the synths to everybody else.
Right.
That seemed like kind of the position that she was taking on there, with that Deltan party that she had.
Exactly. And that's what they sort of were alluding to. Sorry,
Mhm.
Mike.
Oh no. Yeah, that's the piece that I liked about that was we learn about Jurati and kind of where she's come without, in a situation that isn't forced, kind of like on Discovery. Sometimes that information is kind of dropped in like weird places. The details about the secondary bridge crew and how they share these things in the middle of crises, and like whereas here Jurati is actually being hit on, and she kind of gives the catch up story. But also for Soji, I think it's great to hear that you get the catch up as well, that the Federation has gotten rid of the ban on synths. So we see that progress that's happened through, you kind of see not the fallout, but the benefits, or what happened at the end of the season last year. We've seen growth, we've seen changes. And I think that that's sort of what this scene with Soji and Jurati kind of bring together. It also kind of brings together a little bit about her relationship with Chris and where that's at. So it's, and I think it's just done really well in this situation versus Discovery, which I don't necessarily agree with a lot of how they drop in information like this, an info dump essentially, to kind of catch up the audience or give some more character perspective.
And what's weird though is like I'm really struggling to figure out like the time frame after season 1. I don't know if anybody else is struggling as well, but like I feel like it's almost in the 3 to 5 year range. But and reason being, it's like, Zhaban's been dead for a year and a half, right? Raffi's back in Starfleet. Rios is back in Starfleet as the captain, right? Elnor's graduating from the academy. Like all that stuff couldn't have happened overnight. But yet, when you hear it's only been a year since the ban on the synths was lifted.
Yeah, I kind of figured we're in like 2401 or early 2402 based upon Zhaban's death and also that data about the synth being lifted. So we're somewhere in that time frame. I don't think it didn't feel like 3 to 5 years for me. It felt more like 18 to 2 years, somewhere in that range, more like.
I know the vintage on the Chateau Picard at the beginning was 2401, I think. At some point you can see it on the crates that it's stamped into the crate. I did not see it on the label when they did that very cool printing of the label there while he's holding it. That was
cool.
Yeah. Somebody online,
even the beaming of the grapes too was so cool too. Like that's how they cultivate it,
Somebody online commented about the label today and said, even in the 25th century, Adobe has Photoshop going on, and they're still charging a fee monthly for it. So we mentioned Rios. A couple things that I noticed about him. First of all, and obviously it comes with the territory of him now being a Starfleet captain, but far more diplomatic sounding than he was last year. But at the same time, he still was the Rios that we know and love, because he's on a Starfleet bridge with a cigar, man. I was loving that detail.
Starfleet Rios, though. Oh my gosh. I was like, I want my real Rios back. I want the old Rios back. Starfleet Rios was kind of boring. He had his cigar, and it always had brought tension because he did that so well. Like he was just close to lighting it, and he was like, "Psych," I'm not gonna light it. But yeah, I did like hologram Rios. Yeah. And I loved hearing technobabble in Spanish, which was really cool because I don't often get a chance to hear that. So that was awesome.
That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and that is a culmination of all five. So 7 merged all 5 of the EMH or the hologram programs into one. So it's kind of like you can't take the therapeutic side out of the crazy mechanic side or whatever.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
I actually did really like Rios though in this part of. Sorry, Mike.
No, that's okay.
I actually really did like this Rios. I mean, I loved him in season 1. He was a little bit more rough around the edges, but I feel like he's kind of suave. He's kind of he's chilled out a little bit and feels very at home on the bridge of the Stargazer. And talk about the Stargazer looks amazing.
Yeah, how about that Stargazer?
Yeah.
Did you guys happen to notice?
Beautiful ship.
Did you happen to notice the extra 8 at the beginning of the registry?
Yes, yep. That was the first thing I noticed, actually, that they kept the original. They just popped an 8 in front of it, and it was verified later at Starfleet Academy. But I was like, that number looks right, and it's just a beautiful ship, beautiful bridge. Not so sure about the steps. There's a lot of steps on that bridge. But it's still a beautiful bridge. I would even say it's a la, when the first creation of the Enterprise bridge for season 2 Discovery, like that level. I know that they've changed it a little bit for Strange New Worlds, but that kind of level of detail and beauty, it just looks great. And the corridors looked great as well. And can I say it's nice to see a crew? This is one thing that I kind of comment on.
Not just 6 or 7 people.
Yeah. It's actually Johnson and I recorded a couple nights ago, and it's so nice to see a crew on board. And I think it really is the difference between filming in LA and filming in Toronto and kind of the COVID protocols that are associated with each country. But it felt so much fuller. It felt more real to me as a starship anyway. And it just looks amazing. I mean, it looks beautiful. So kudos to the team that built that and did all that, because it is phenomenal. And I would, in our preview episode, I did say I would follow Jean-Luc Picard anywhere. I will actually follow Cristobal Rios and serve on the Stargazer anytime.
Can I please go back to Rios? And I agree with you, Mike. Like, he is more chilled out. I'm sorry, Jamie. He is more chilled out. But let me tell you, every time when we had the holographic Rios and they had those couple of shots, and I was like, if we ever remade The Princess Bride, God, please don't touch it. I'm just saying, if we ever, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. He's dead ringer. He looked just like him.
He really is. Nice call out. Yes, but yes, don't remake it, please.
Please, God, no.
That movie has a special place.
Have you ever heard Santiago Cabrera's natural accent?
I don't think so.
He sounds English. Like his natural accent sounded English. Like, I was surprised when I heard him talking because of all the other accents that he did on the show,
and without facial hair too, how different he looks.
Yeah, that too. All right, one more thing that I had on my list. Well, actually, no, 2 more things, because let's just say we have not talked about Guinan much yet.
We're getting there.
There you go. Take it away.
Okay. Guinan! Oh my God, Guinan! Loved it. I was so happy. That moment when they were reunited, I mean, it was so real, and I felt all the warm fuzzies and all the tears. And of course, we miss the person who can talk to Picard straight to the heart. Straight, no chaser, but but soft with love, but firm, and that's our girl Guinan. Oh my word. Everything about their scene together was magic.
Yeah. And
I want more of that. I want more of that.
No, I want it.
And I think because she's in LA, I am fingers crossed that we are going to see her in subsequent episodes.
Yeah, Akiva Goldsman said she was not a one and done, so she will be appearing again this season. But I got to say, going right along with what you were saying, Tamia, the note that I made here was Picard's having his life discussions with Guinan. When you go back to TNG, he always had mission discussions with Troy and Riker. And last year with Nepenthe, that's essentially what he was doing with them. Was he catching up as like family members? Yes. But it was still a mission discussion that they were talking about. Soji was his mission. And sitting down with Guinan, this was the life discussion. This was, about relationships. She was always the one that made him think about the moral side of anything that he was doing, or just get into, who Picard really is, not, Picard the man, not Picard the officer.
What's interesting though, Mike, is I almost feel like Laris had taken that place in his life that Guinan used to have. But now, because of his little falling out with Laris, the little awkwardness, where else is he going to go? Right? He's got to go back to his comfort food. He's got to go back to Guinan to talk about Laris. Right?
Yeah, that's
Laris.
true.
He doesn't have Laris anymore.
They can't talk to Laris about Laris.
No,
Correct.
But I still felt like, I still felt like there was a power dynamic that's at play between Picard and Laris that's not at play with Guinan. Mm-hmm. Like Guinan she's never been his subordinate.
Right.
And the Sci-Fi Sisters, to do another plug, have a show. One of our shows is about Picard and the sisters, and we talk about Alfre Woodard's character, and we talk about Guinan, and we talk about how these were the women that Picard would listen to on a deep level, and they never worked for him, right. And that's a really important distinction, because and I think that's another reason why that dynamic between Picard and Laris was a little weird. You had to be really careful with that, because there was a power dynamic there. But Guinan's straight up his equal, if not more than that,
right?
Because she is so old, and because she's seen so much of the universe, of many universes. You know what I'm saying? So he's I think it's different.
She strikes me as the universe's life coach. She kind of, she just gives the advice and wants to dig into his heart and who he is and really call him on his BS. And I loved everything about that scene. It just felt I would have loved for it to be longer. I would have loved for it to be deeper. I wanted it to go on. And I know, editing and whatnot and writing, but I just wanted to hear more, and hopefully at some point we'll kind of hear. We saw glimpses, right? We saw glimpses of life with his mom when they moved to the chateau. And obviously there's something traumatic there that I'm not sure that I'm exactly comfortable with that creation of a traumatic childhood moment that seems to be shown. But we'll have to see where that goes. But I'm not sure that creating that was necessary. But I would love to have sat there and just listened into a deep conversation and let Guinan take Picard deeper and find out what's really going on here. So I hope that we get something like that. I hope that at some point in this season that we do get Guinan digging into that and helping him through that, so that we can, now I'm on board with the Laris Picard relationship. So, let's get them there.
Yeah,
I'm aboard the bandwagon, Mike.
Yeah. I was going to say too, you brought up that point of that traumatic event, and, something that I had in my notes as well, that, I wonder if they're trying to set us up to be where this is what drives him to be alone or drives him to be in Starfleet, is that losing that relationship of his mother and that close, that close female character that he had. You know, I don't know if they're trying to kind of, you know, set something up later on, but like you, Mike, it was weird watching that sequence, and I felt very confused and unsure of how I really felt about it.
I think Patrick Stewart is having a lot of influence on that as far as the writing goes, because we know that he experienced something, at least what seems similar to what they showed in that sequence in his own life with his mother and his father being abusive. So that could be where that's coming from, but I guess we'll have to see as the season goes on.
I thought it was really intriguing. I actually had that in my notes too about that. You know, what are these flashbacks? What do they portend?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm really interested to find out, you know, what they mean. You know, because what I thought was so interesting and unsettling about how they did the flashbacks was at one moment you see his mother being victimized, and at the next moment you see her being the victimizer. At least that's how I saw it. At least that's what I think that I saw. But I mean, it was just, you know, it was clear that there was psychological trauma and issues going on there. So, and I'm really excited to get another layer of backstory on Picard.
And it looks like that, you know, that greenhouse or whatever that room is, that where he spent time with his mother, it looks like he hasn't been there in years. Like It's almost like that traumatic event happened and he can't face that anymore. Like he's blocked that out of his life and kind of, you know, said, I can't deal with this anymore. And it's like he's walking back in to something that's painful and a reminder of what took place there, and like that he tries to avoid it at all cost almost.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the last thing that I had in my notes is that last year we had Admiral Clancy, a female Starfleet commander-in-chief. And this year, I don't think we got a last name for the commander-in-chief, but he called her Sally. But it was April Grace, who she's actually Trek alumni because she had been in TNG before as a transporter operator. I just thought it was nice that they keep progressing. You know, something that you mentioned a little while ago, Tamia, about how he had these you know, Guinan and Alfre Woodward's character. I can't remember her name now, but they were never subordinates of his. And in this case, he's her subordinate. Mm-hmm. Really cool. But I thought it was neat too how they brought back an alum to play that part too.
That is super cool.
There's one other thing I want to cover, Mike.
Okay.
It was actually my favorite thing in the episode, and I'm amazed that nobody has talked about it up to this point.
I hope it's the thing that I wanted to cover too. Come on, Jamie, hit me.
I bet I know what it is. It's in my notes.
It was Q going from young to old.
Oh, that was one of them.
I thought that was my favorite part of the episode. I thought it was executed perfectly. And obviously I'm a big fan of like The Mandalorian and, you know, other shows and how they do this, you know, young to old thing, how it was done, how it looked, A+, 10 out of 10. I mean, it was done so well, and it explained how he looks older so well. Like it just, to me, it was just awesome. It was actually my favorite part of the whole episode.
I agree. They did that well. And I'm a fan of Star Wars as well, Jamie. So I've seen all of the iterations of that and how they've done that with Tarkin and Leia and et cetera. But yeah, that was one of the best, whether it was CG or whatever it was, it looked so natural, so real. And it was great.
Even like how he snapped his finger, like the sound effect, like it like hit me in the chest. It was so powerful.
Jamie was like, encounter a far point.
I agree. That was beautiful. Can I bring up one more thing?
I was just going to say, what was your favorite thing that hasn't been brought up?
Well, the thing that hasn't been brought up that I thought was super cool, and I'm sure a lot of people are, I'm sure it's going to be a point of contention, was the new Borg ship thing.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so cool. It's like this deconstructed cube, right? Like what's the Borg in this time period, with these whatever, like let's deconstruct it and just make this starburst type thing, like that's constantly looked like it was phasing in and out. I mean, it was just, I thought that was so cool. And that weird Borg Queen, like, she was super scary. She was so scary to me.
It almost sounded, and I can't believe I'm forgetting her name now, but the Klingon Chancellor from Discovery, it almost sounded like her voice.
Mary Chifo.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost sounded like Mary Chifo's voice. I don't know if anybody else picked up on that.
I didn't, but I can see that. And see,
I also wonder what's underneath that skull. Sorry, Mike. What's underneath that? And I think that I'm wondering. My well, we're not to predictions yet, but I have a thought about.
Almost looked like the Torchbearer. She almost had the Torchbearer look from Discovery season 1. Yeah, it was like the Torchbearer with L'Rell talking. I don't know.
And you saw the gears working as she kind of. That was an amazing detail.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was so cool.
I have a thought that's progressed over the last week or so, so I'll bring that up as well. I can't believe that Jamie didn't comment on Picard 000 destruct 0, that they still haven't changed the password. Good Lord.
That password's going to get hacked.
I was dying. I was on the floor laughing so hard with that. I was like, you're kidding me, right?
That was great, though. That was a great throwback because, do you remember in the first season of Next Gen, they just had to put their hand on the console and confirm the auto destruct. Whereas this time they went back to search for Spock and use that same destruct code, which they've never actually used that code again in any that I can think of any other Star Trek. So it was great. These little callbacks that I think were nice little Easter eggs, they really did well in this and only people like us would pick up on those. Like no one else who was jumping on to season 2 who didn't really watch a lot of Star Trek would pick up on that. So
but I really, really wish that it wasn't like 0000, really, like, come on. I get that we needed a callback, but everything else is so much more advanced. Is this really how we're going to blow up the ship?
Right.
As a bunch of damn zeros? You're kidding me, right?
What's the password? Password is QWERTY.
Well, if you think about it, too, the only 2 people who've ever used that code are actually our admirals. So it's not like it's a captain's code. I don't know if that makes any if anyone's thought if the writers had thought that through, but that's
the first time it appeared was in Let That Be Your Last Battlefield in the original series. That's where Search for Spock got it from.
Oh, excuse me.
Sorry,
someone's.
Sorry.
In Search for Spock, though, Chekhov had the hardest code.
Oh yeah,
right. His was absolutely the hardest to memorize.
Sorry, my nerddom knows no bounds.
That's a deep cut, Mike. So kudos to you. You.
How does it know what time sequence to give though? That's the part I'm always more. It's 10 minutes in season 1 episode, 001 whatever. That episode.
Binars.
The Binars one.
Yeah, the Binars. Yep.
It was 5 minutes. Yeah, it was
it's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. Star Trek 3, it was like the longest 60 seconds of our life. I mean, they got enough time to leave the bridge, go to the transporter room, transport without
working turbo lifts.
Right. The Klingons transport on the ship, basically walk through the entire ship, right? The entire ship. They walk through the entire ship. The ship appears to be deserted. How would you know that unless you walk through the entire ship? Get to the bridge, and there's still like 10 seconds left.
Yeah, and wasn't this one just 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's what
Like,
I thought.
mean, and the Klingons' call to Commander Krug, and like
it's the only thing
him
speaking.
too. Yeah.
It was manufactured by the same people who make my washer and dryer, where it was on the last minute for literally 3 minutes. It said 1 minute.
I have that same
3
one.
minutes later, it was still on 1 minute. Then it got down to a second and said 1 second. And I'm like, okay, I'm standing there ready to take out the laundry. How long do you think that 1 second lasted?
It's the same people that manufactured the decks in Star Trek V as well.
Oh, yeah. All right. Before we go too far off the rails, we should probably hit fan sets off.
Too late.
We'd like to take a moment to talk about Fansets, the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Fansets is the home of amazing pin collectibles. The quality of the merchandise they put out is second to none. It's not just Star Trek that they offer, as they have something for all different types of fandom, including Scooby-Doo, DC Comics, Batman 66, Harry Potter, and Rick and Morty.
As you all know, Fansets releases new pins twice a month, and their March 1st release once again gives us many special new items. The Star Trek Picard and Star Trek Lower Decks title card pins are the latest release to help sections of those franchises have a place on your wall. And for those traveling to Mission Chicago next month, there'll be 3 special pins released for the event. So keep an eye on fansets.com for those and over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins, including the Deltas Done Right collection, as well as micro crew pins, episode pins, and many other great designs. So go to fansets.com and put a whole bunch of pins into your cart.
As a listener to the show, you can receive 10% off your next order from Fansets by using the code DiscoveringTrek at checkout. And remember that you receive free shipping in the U.S. on orders of $30 or more.
Fansets. Our pins have character.
Now we want to talk about the overall message of the episode, what it potentially teaches us about ourselves or humanity. And let's see, I don't believe that Mike has gone first yet, so we'll let Mike take the lead.
So I think this episode really focuses on second chances for almost everyone on the show. Certainly Picard and Laris is sort of a second chance at love and having a relationship. We have Soji experiencing a second chance to be a diplomat for the synths. Rios and Raffi rejoin Starfleet after both being sort of unceremoniously kind of exiled from Starfleet. And, Seven, well, I don't know what her second chance is other than having her own ship and being able to continue her mission as a Fenris Ranger. But I really enjoy, and Jurati too, I guess, is my sort of questionable, other than, being absolved of murder, which I think is a pretty big second chance.
Yeah, it is.
Not exactly sure that how I feel about that quite yet. But I'm glad. I actually liked her a lot more in this episode than I have previously. She was the same, but also, I don't know. I just felt differently about her. And maybe it was because all of you convinced me that she was not the worst character from my perspective on season 1 of Picard. But I think, seeing this really gave me hope. This episode and having a chance to revisit all the characters, sometime after the events of season 1, whether whatever the time frame is. But I felt like that was sort of the message of this first episode, was second chances, and I think with the Borg Queen, I'm wondering if we're not going to get another second chance here, and I'll save that for my predictions for later.
That is what we call in the business a tease. Tamia, how about you?
Okay, well, I really feel the scene between Picard and Guinan really encapsulated the theme that struck me the hardest, where Guinan says to him, the only place you've been afraid to explore is in here. What happened in there that you and I have never talked about? When she was pointing like inside Picard, and that struck me because that it's about living an unexamined life. What's life worth living? For me personally, that look within has been my saving grace, for the past 7 years. And the fact that I've had good mentors to help guide me into those deep places that I would never talk about to anybody. But it's those deep places that we never talk about that are actually the chains on our spirits. It's the things that anchor our fears and our insecurities are all these things that we would never talk about to somebody. And so I was really struck by that conversation with them, and how she said, and she thinks there's one final frontier yet to come, that his answers are not in the stars. The answers to most of my problems today really reside within me, because these incidents that happen when we're young, these moments that happen when we're young, really shape how we respond to and deal and handle the world when we're older, those trigger responses. So, and I love the fact that like Discovery, this is a personal exploration, but unlike Discovery, this is they're really showing the personal. They're not preaching to me about this personal exploration. They're really showing the work being done, and and so I can really relate to that, because it's hard work. It's not easy work to look within. It's not easy to face those things that that we don't want to touch. There's really sore places. So that's what I love. That's what I loved about this episode. That's what I'm looking forward to. Seeing more of that exploration in the future, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. Jamie?
I'm going to go completely opposite to everybody here. I think that this episode had a lot to do with loss and being alone. I think that those were kind of two themes that were really, put to the forefront in this episode. We look at Raffi and Seven, not together, loss, being alone, Rios and Jurati, Picard with Laris, Picard with his mother, even Picard with Guinan to a certain extent. They really hadn't been together for a while, it appeared, until they kind of rekindled. Laris and Jaban, the loss that took place there. There was a lot of coping with loss and, discovering what it means to be alone. And, I feel like, especially how the episode ended with Picard feeling very alone, in a strange place in his house, but really not with anything that's familiar to him, with Laris not being there. And I feel like these are going to be themes that are kind of explored throughout this season.
Wow, you guys are all making me feel like mine is minor and insignificant. so, so I thought that one of the main messages here was time and the passing of it. We hear Picard and Laris talking about how they're too old to deal with certain things. Guinan makes the comment about her age and Picard's age, and even Q, when he makes his appearance, comments about Picard's age. And I thought, and I feel like a lot of this season is going to deal with making the best use of the time that we have at hand. We think of Picard last season, and he was doing his best to finish that last mission, or what he thought was going to be the last mission, before he died. And it happened. But then, going to Mike's point, he got a second chance on it. So in this case, just making the best use of the time that he now has at his disposal. But then that going for all of the characters as well, and we're going to have to see how it plays out, especially with the oddity that popped up there at the end of the episode.
Starfleet Command is proud to present you the Christopher Pike Medal of Valor.
So now we'll move on to our medals, our awards section. So here we can give out our pretend awards and make it seem like we have some kind of influence over things. So anything from this episode that we felt was worthy of an award, and I think I'm the last one to go first on one of these, so I'm gonna take this one. So my first one, we talked a lot about the Stargazer and some of these ships and everything. So set decorator Timothy Stepnick, I had to do some thorough browsing of the credits to find that.
Nice work.
but we saw, man, I mean, some awesome sets there, and we know that they have that virtual reality wall in Toronto. I don't know that they have that in LA, so I think a lot of this is actual sets that they're working on right now. Something that we didn't talk about, the new Starfleet uniforms. I had to give a shout out to wardrobe on that. Mitchell Ray Kenny, the wardrobe supervisor. I don't know if he designed those, but man, I love the combination of what seems like the movie era uniforms and the Next Generation / Voyager / Deep Space Nine uniforms. Just a very neat mashup to get us old school Trekkies our blood flowing. And then finally, I mean, we talked a lot about how much we like this episode. Writers and direction. We mentioned their names earlier. Terry, Akiva, and Doug. They did a phenomenal job with this episode, getting the season off to a great starting point.
Like, I thought you could only do like a maximum of 3. That sounded like about 17 awards you gave out.
Well, I
think he stole all of ours as well. So what other awards are we going to get?
This is the last time you go first for the award.
My last one was a combination award.
And then you make me feel like I didn't do any research because I don't know any of these people's names behind the scenes that all these things.
Up until 5 minutes before we started recording, I didn't either. All right, Big Mouth Jamie, why don't you go next?
No, now I'm a big mouth. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go with the special effects department. I don't know any people specifically involved because I'm not Mike Bovia. So I the special effects department, and purely based on the whole Q sequence, I cannot say enough how much I loved that sequence. And that's going to lead me right into my second award, which is the sound department. The sound effects in this episode, from the ships, the explosions, to me, it was so powerful and just really brought this episode to life. So that would be my number 2. And I'm going to give a shout out to Jeff Russo. I really like how he redid the opening credits, the music, how it was the same, but there were some subtle differences that to me just really, pronounced what the theme of this season is going to be. So I give Jeff Russo a lot of credit. I'm very, very cognizant of the music, and I think he did a nice job updating the theme music.
Can I say along those lines too? I like that we're getting the use of songs, like actual, like lyrical songs, in this. Like, I thought that was a great lead-in at the chateau. I can't remember the name of the song, but I was singing along.
Time is on your side.
Yes. Yep. Loved it. All right, Tamia, you're unmuted, so why don't you go next?
Okay, so I mean, my awards this week just go to all the actors. I thought there were such strong performances. And first, it started with me being like, okay, Sir Pat, of course, because he was just bringing it. And then I was like, well, Orla, because she was standing toe to toe with him and she brought it. And then, every actor that I kept here that I encountered on that screen really was bringing their A game. But I think my highlights, it's so hard to have. It's okay. So it's Sir Pat, it's Orla, it's Whoopi, and it's John Delancey. Those are my and Jerry Ryan is shooting right underneath there because man, she was fierce, But John Delancey and Sir Pat together in that scene was just so riveting, and the myriad of emotions and little minute muscle movements in John Delancey's face. It was just amazing to watch them too. And the level of vehemence when Sir Pat was like, God damned Q, oh my God, it blew me back on my seat. It was just a thing of beauty to watch these people work, these two great masters. So that's my awards for the week.
I love it. Yeah, they were awesome together. It was like they had never stopped acting together.
Exactly.
And Mike, if I took some of yours, you can double up.
Well, I have to say that and this is something I comment on Discovery a lot, so this is why I'm going to give this award. I think the writing by Akiva and Terry for this episode was amazing, and it was a type of writing that I appreciate where it's not just exposition, it's actual character development, and in a way that makes sense. It's not shoehorned in, and I really appreciate that. It felt very authentic. We get to see the characters. I felt like they had grown, but they were still the same. And I think that comes down to the writing initially. Obviously, I agree with Tamia that the actors were phenomenal. And I want to give a shout out so definitely Akiva and Terry. Also, I have to give it up for both Orla and Whoopi. Just two phenomenal women actors who really bring it in this episode, and really, I think we can all agree that Sir Patrick Stewart is one of the top actors in the world, and to go toe to toe with someone who's been acting all his life, like literally his career spans 60 plus years. He's been doing this since he was a teenager. So 70 years, so it's just, to see these two women just play off of him in a way that felt authentic, you felt the emotion, you felt the connection. And, I think that really means a lot to me in these nearly post-COVID times where connection is important, and being able to realize that again in person. So I really want to give a shout out to the two of them as well. And I'm gonna go with Jamie on Jeff Russo, but I did love the theme, but I also, there was a lot of subtle music in this episode that really was reminiscent of previous Trek. Specifically, it gave me a lot of next gen vibes, and maybe that's because of Q, maybe that's because of Guinan, maybe that's because of the Stargazer. I don't know, but I was really listening and picking up on some music, some undertones of next gen vibe music that was really creating a great atmosphere for me personally. I just really enjoyed that, and it got me more into the episodes because honestly, I think that part of growing up with Next Gen and Deep Space Nine and all of that was the soundtracks. I loved the soundtracks. I had all of them. I probably still have all of them in storage somewhere. And this was the first time where I felt like I was hearing more of that kind of music. And it really pulled me into the episode. So definitely Jeff Russo for a slightly different reason. I do like the theme. I actually like it a lot better than the first season's theme. But the first season theme is certainly in that as well. So those are my three.
I just both, Mike, you and Tamia talked about Whoopi. And it was funny as you were talking about Whoopi and how, Patrick Stewart has been doing this for 70 years. I was thinking to myself, well, Whoopi's been doing it for a long time too. But if you really think about it, she's gotten away from acting the last several years. She really hasn't been doing it. So for her to come right back into that role and step right back in and go toe to toe with one of our generation's greatest actors of all time, to me, really, when you were talking about it, and you to me as well, really hit home for me that like, wow, yes, this is someone who's been acting for a long time, but she really hasn't been doing it of late. She had gotten away from it. And for her to just kick it right back into high gear and go right back up to level 10 and stand toe to toe with him and chew scenery with Sir Patrick Stewart, it is just something that it really, really hit home for me and resonated.
That's a great point, Jamie. I hadn't thought about that.
Library computer, data being received.
So we're going to start a new tradition here at Discovering Trek with our predictions section. We've mentioned in the past they can be as crazy as you want, as long as you can back it up with the reasons why. And since she hates to do predictions, we're going to let Tamia go first. That way, nobody takes whatever she might have.
Oh, great.
I thought you were going to get a quick download from Sabrina before recording.
She's cruising, man. She didn't give me my
She's
download.
unreachable.
She's unreachable. Give me my download. I don't know. Well, I really, oh gosh, I hate predictions. Okay, look, it's going to sound silly, but and we've kind of alluded to it already, but that moment between Laris and Picard in the very beginning, where it was where they were almost, and he pulled back. I just think that is the moment that the entire rest of the season hinges upon. So that's as much of a prediction as I've got for you guys. Discuss amongst yourselves.
No, I like that.
I like it too. That. Great job.
Thanks, guys.
Mike, why don't you go next?
I think my only prediction is that, and I've alluded to it, is that the Borg Queen that comes on the Stargazer is actually going to be his mom. And I think that the look up is the key there. And I don't know how we're going to get there. First of all, I have no clue how we're going to get there, but I feel like, and that's what once I went back and watched it the second time, I'm like, those gears are like, she needed power to unlock whatever cocoon she was in, whether it was something to bridge the interdimensions. I don't know. But all of that being said, I think that when she said, a millisecond before the ship blew up, look up, and he just like stunned there. I don't even think he necessarily will remember that or hears that or even, I mean, obviously he's in a different timeline now, but that's my prediction, is that somehow is going to be his mom. And I'm hoping that it's going to be a worthwhile reveal for that, because I'm really not on board with creating some trauma in Picard's past just to justify him being someone who, especially the scene, the quick 1 second where she's being dragged away. I think that's also where that really weirded me out. What happened there, and gosh, that has feels for First Contact, seeing all the crew being pulled away that way through the door. And even what was it, Picard, or was it Data who was pulled? Data was pulled away underneath yeah. So that's my prediction. I just hope it's a worthwhile venture to get there, and not something that's kind of really manufactured in a way that doesn't feel authentic and doesn't feel real to what we know of Jean-Luc Picard.
Thanks, Mike. Jamie, did he steal your thought?
I thought I was going to have the mic drop, like this crazy off the wall prediction.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jamie.
About the Borg Queen being Picard's mother, and totally foiled. But I'm right on board with you, and I think there's too many, but there's a part of me that almost think that that's the obvious thing that we're supposed to think. Well, he had this traumatic event that happened in his life, and she was dragged away, and it's all going to be connected. So I'm not really sure how to feel. And there's also a part of me that's like, well, at one point he was Locutus, so wouldn't he have known that his mother was a Borg? But we don't know with this whole time thing, what's going on with all that. But I do want to highlight a couple of things though, in regards to that I do think that they're going to really accentuate that point of this traumatic event being the thing that pushed him to go to Starfleet, pushed him to want to be alone, pushed him in that direction. But yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. I really think that they're going to somehow weave this, that this is Picard's mom, because she was making that same reference. But there's some interesting things though too that happened. The Borg Queen not killing any of the security officers. That was something that I kind of picked up on too, that kind of led me to think that maybe it's his mother or somebody that knows him from his past. Who else would call out to Picard specifically and try to bridge that gap? But there's also, I'm also wondering the whole thing about Q too. End of the road not taken. What does that mean? That's really what I'm going to be trying to kind of figure out throughout this season. And I really wonder if, to your point, Tamia, if that phrase that Q talks about is him not taking that step with Laris, and how you said that first scene really is the whole season's going to hinge on that. I firmly believe that as well, that might be what Q is alluding to, or the fact that he's chosen to stay alone and not be with somebody. Those might be things that are hinging, but I do think at the end, he's going to end up with Laris in the last episode, that they're going to be together and all that happy horse stuff.
Hey man, hey guys, real quick, before we leave the Borg Queen sort of questioning on the deck there. I'm sorry, I'm so late with this. On the deck, when Rios was like, stop shooting, and nobody stopped shooting.
Yeah,
like I'm like,
weird.
What does the captain have no control over his ship?
Nobody respects his authority. Apparently.
No, nobody. That was the craziest thing to me. Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. So I have some Borg Queen theories that I can't back up yet. So I'm going to save them for future episodes. I have some thoughts, but I have no basis in anything that we've seen so far. So I'm going to go with the obvious part is that, we've now been dumped by Q into some type of alternate reality. We don't know quite what yet. It doesn't seem like it's a mirror universe, although Delancey has a goatee, so maybe it could be. But it doesn't seem like it's a mirror universe. But it's obviously not the same. Picard's walking around looking for things, calling for Laris, and he can't find anything that would normally be in its place. That greenhouse area, all the windows are blown out of it. So something is not right. Something seems different. We're going to have to see what it is. I mean, he's got the different badge on his shirt. So that's obviously something different, but I'm taking the punt this week and going with the easy one. So speaking of next week, Tamia, what do we have to look forward to in episode 2?
So much to look forward to in episode 2. Q explains to Picard exactly what's happened and where he is. Now he needs to catch up with the rest of his team so they can plan their next move. Episode 2 is entitled Penance, and we'll be covering it here for you on Discovering Trek Picard.
And don't forget that you can support Discovering Trek and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network by subscribing to bonus content on Patreon. Get access to unedited audio of all our podcasts and a lot of other awesome perks. If you'd like to support this and the other member podcasts of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, beam over to patreon.com/TrekGeeks, where subscriptions start as low as $2 a month.
For more great Star Trek discussion, check out the aforementioned member podcasts on the network. In addition to Discovering Trek, there is the original Trek Geeks, Rewind, Politirex, 5-Year Mission, Deep Space Pride, Drawn to Trek, Infinite Trek, The Divine Treasury, Sci-Fi Sisters, Science Station 2, and With the First Link. You can find all of these shows and where to listen on trekgeeks.com/listen or by downloading the Trek Geeks mobile app.
Trek Geeks Podcast Network. No one talks Star Trek like we do.
We know that we have a lot to look forward to this year with Q messing around with things, and how's everyone going to work to put it all back? How does time travel work into all of this, as we've seen in the trailers this year? Well, we'll have to keep watching to find out, and make sure to do so by spending time with us each week as we break down each episode. To close, here's a quote from Jean-Luc Picard in Generations. Time is a companion who goes with us on the journey and reminds us to cherish every moment because they'll never come again. And until next time, never stop discovering.
Music for Discovering Trek is provided by 5-Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Discovering Trek is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.